My name is Julie Kraft and I have bipolar 2 disorder.
I'm Shaley Hoogendoorn and I live with bipolar 2 disorder.
I was diagnosed 10 years ago at the age of 36.
I was told of my diagnosis and I remember being relieved but also terrified. I know the perceptions and the stigma that goes along with it. I started sharing my story about 4 or 5 years ago.
I decided to come forward and start sharing. It's led to me meeting the most amazing people, walking the same path.
So we had talked about collaborating. My greatest hope is that others will hear our stories and feel less alone.
We can offer insight and give the world a real life living example of what bipolar disorder can look like.
This is bipolar.
This is bipolar.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to our next episode. We're really excited and nervous, as per usual, to talk today all things hypomania, and we'll touch a little bit on mania. Before we get started and into our life experience about it, I would love for Julie, she's going to read the medical definition, and then we want to break that down for you and show you what that looks like in actual lives. So Julie, would you read that?
All right. I am by no means a doctor or a psychiatrist or a professional, which is why I'm going right to the web for the official definition. So we are talking about bipolar disorder, and Shaley and I both have bipolar 2. And one of the defining features of bipolar is mania. And so there is bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. And so bipolar 1, people with that disorder will experience mania, and bipolar 2 experiences hypomania. So I'm going to read the definition for both, and then we are going to discuss our own personal experiences, our lived experience. So mania is more than just having extra energy to burn. It's a mood disturbance that makes you abnormally energized, both physically and mentally. Mania can be severe enough to require you to be hospitalized. Mania occurs in people with bipolar 1 disorder. In many cases, in mania, my mind is already on mania. In many cases of bipolar 1, manic episodes alternate with periods of depression. However, people with bipolar 1 don't always have depressive episodes. So that's a quick snippet on mania. And now switching to hypomania, which is less severe. Hypomania is a milder form of mania. If you're experiencing hypomania, your energy level is higher than normal, but it's not as extreme as in mania. Other people will notice if you have hypomania. It causes problems in your life, but not to the extent that mania can. If you have hypomania, you won't need to be hospitalized for it. People with bipolar 2 disorder may experience hypomania that alternates with depression. And, once again, these are definitions taken off the web, but I think for anyone that has bipolar disorder, our experiences are so different. And anyone that doesn't have bipolar, I know it's often hard for them to understand what mania or hypomania can actually look like and how it can manifest in someone's life. So hopefully today, Shaley and I are going to be able to shed a little bit more insight and light on hypomania.
And one of the things too, and I don't mention it a lot because I'm just learning, and I feel like am so overwhelmed with learning so much and growing within my disorder, that I know there's a few other ones like cyclomania. I just don't know enough to speak to those. So that's why we're kind of focusing on both. And what we wanted to do, so that we didn't talk for 3 hours,
right,
is that today we want to break down the good parts, because there are, for us with hypomania. Absolutely, other people have different experiences. And our next episode, we're going to talk about the terrible part about it.
Right.
And the spiral and the crash and that kind of thing. So please don't think we're trying to romanticize and think mania is just incredible. We just want to talk about that part and how it affects our life and give a lot of insight into that, and then separate it into another episode where we talk about the other side, right?
Yeah, and I think also, let me cut you up. I
Yeah.
think it's important too for us to each share what hypomania actually looks like in our lives because it is so different for other people. And when I was being diagnosed, me describing everything to the psychiatrist, including, my periods of time where I did feel increased energy, that was, I do truly believe that was what helped me to get an accurate diagnosis. And so because mania is the one of the most defining features of bipolar, I think the greater understanding or insight we can give on this, it might help someone listening today or watching today, it might help them identify, oh, I never thought of it that way, but that might actually be what mania or hypomania
Yeah.
looks like in my life. So
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, I think that's why it took so long for me to get a diagnosis, because the depression was so bad that I didn't think of the hypomania as being a bad thing. And I just thought it was me, because I know we've talked about before baselines, right?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
different people have different baselines. So if you have a lower baseline, then your hypomania, which isn't full blown, might not look bizarre or over the top to other people. But if your people know you, like your
Yeah.
close circle, they'll know that that's actually high for you. I am normally on a high frequency. So mine's, I would think that it's a little bit more noticeable to people in my close circle, but not so much with, like, when we explain this, you might think, oh, I felt that before, but let us say it's to the extreme,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's to, when we're going to explain next, like how it feels in our body, and what we've done during episodes and stories like that. But please keep in mind that it the intensity of it, we realize, like, I can't even imagine what it would be like to have full-blown mania, because hypomania
Yeah.
feels so intense to
Yeah.
me. So yes, tell your doctor that, because all, like, mental health disorders overlap so much.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing that prevented, because I was like, I'm depressed and this is regular Shaley, right? I
Yeah.
didn't know. I didn't
Yeah.
know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Julie, I would love to start, because mania and bipolar, it's a brain disorder, but
Mhm.
what I want people to understand how it affects our entire bodies during these times, because I think we can, think it's all up here. But I know for me, and I'm excited to hear about you, like, what are some of the things that you feel in your body, or the changes that make you aware? Do you have signs, or does it just hit you? Tell me all the things.
All the things. Well, it definitely hits me in almost every area in my life. And for me, it's in a lot of the best possible ways. So I'm actually, people find this hard to believe, but I'm on the shyer side. And I'm also an introvert. And so I can clearly notice when my hypomania kicks in that I am more social than normal. I'm usually someone that likes to hide away and be anonymous in stores. And so I don't have the confidence to step into, say, a higher end store. But when I am hypomanic, um, I feel confidence like I never feel before. And whether it's to strike up a conversation with a stranger in the street, whether it's to reach out to people for coffee dates, put myself out online more, on social media more. I don't struggle to get back to people, whether it's by text or email. And I think so, so much of the time I don't feel that when I do feel it, it is exhilarating. I want to bottle it up for all those days when I don't feel that confident. And you really do. I describe it as sort of, walking 55,000 feet above the clouds. The sun is shining. You just feel like, and it teeters. You have to be really careful because it does teeter on, almost being narcissistic. But I think for me, it's just like the world is amazing. rainbows and sunshine. I'm more confident driving. So it really does touch on every area of my life, right down to what I wear. And I joke about having two sides of my closet. One you can clearly see would be what I wear when I am feeling good. And there's a lot of leopard, there's a lot of sparkle and gold and bold patterns. And I wore, my wing shirt today. I've got my bracelets. And so I definitely, even in the way I dress, you can tell. And I'll be bolder and braver and just, so those parts of hypomania for me, that explains why it's my favorite part of having bipolar. But as you said, there are two sides, but we're focusing on the great side. So as far as how I feel and act physically, those are a few of the things that I experience. Now, of course, I'm going to throw the same question back at you.
Mhm.
How do you feel, and how does hypomania look like
Yeah.
on you?
Yeah, if you've heard episodes before, you know that I have a very cyclical, so I can almost like know the month. It took me a lot of years to figure that out. But literally, there isn't a huge warning. I wake up and I just, my brain is on fire. It's just like you wake up running. I feel like one of those track, when the track star's down and their foot's on the thing or whatever. I don't know. I'm not exercising, but I can, when they shoot off, it's
Yeah.
like immediately. And I just know, I'm just like, okay. And I can, like, I jump out of bed and sometimes it's early. I think too, maybe what we'll touch on after I explain this is pre-medication versus medication, because Julie and I have chosen to go on
Right.
medication and how that changed it. But pre-medication, like I don't need much sleep. I talk really fast, and there's like breaks, like parts I miss because my mind's moving so fast. I thought I
Mhm.
explained everything, and like my husband will have to say skipped a part or rewind or not getting the connection because of that. But like you said too, the ideas just come. And uh, like like you, I'm a creative person anyways, but it's the amount of ideas I have, and I notice they're not sequential. So I'm an event planner. You would think that I would be like do, and I do all those things, but I don't do it in how I would imagine um,
Mhm.
some other people do it, right? Like in order or whatever. I'm here and here, and everything gets done, and it's usually I pull it off to my own detriment. Next episode, but yeah, it's just wild. And unlike you, I think mine is sometimes a little harder for the people around me because I am an extrovert, and like uh, I am like that. Like I have to be around, even when I've been in my deepest depression and I'm numb, I still I still went out, even though it wasn't fun. I still did those things, but I'll look and I'll have like ideas, or I just see beauty in everything, or I'll see something and I'll be like, I have to tell this person because it reminded me of them. And I like, when people, they show on movies, or people have felt it when they're like drunk and they're like, I love you, man. I like it like that about everyone. I'm like, you mean so much to me. So I will look back and I can have upwards to like 20 to 50 texts or messages.
Mhm.
And my friends can tell, and I tell them now, like, don't feel like you have to respond. But also, and I have a question about you for
Mhm.
this, is the intensity. So I can't stop myself, right? Like it seems like, oh, slow down, take deep breaths or whatever. It actually seems like impossible to, and you just want, I can't explain how intense it feels and how urgent. Like that
Yes.
message, I'll like pull over to send
Me too.
about something because one, I'm afraid I'll lose it, the
Yeah.
thought, and two, it just seems like if it doesn't happen now, there's like impending doom, like something will happen, or it's so stuck in my body and it'll just whirl that I have to get it out to be able to cope with the next thought.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about your thought process. Like, do things feel urgent and catastrophic and intense?
Yes. And I actually have been driving down the road and pulled over because I think I've experienced so many times when I've gone months and months and months when, and I know we've talked about this, when words are hard, thoughts don't flow so easily. So when they do, there is definitely a sense of almost panic. I've got to get this out, whether it's write it out or just, blurt it out into my phone, because that could be gone. And I think you're so much more aware when you don't always have that creativity. And so for me, when I was writing my memoir, I would literally sit down and in one night, like 3 chapters would just pour out of me effortlessly. And we're going to talk about next episode when you write all through the night, although it's fantastic that you've been productive.
Yeah.
There are definitely repercussions to that. But in terms of, as an artist and a writer, it is just boom, bam. Or I will whip out a painting in a couple hours and my husband will be like, how did you do that? Yeah. And I'll say, I have no idea. And I'll also say, I have no idea if I will ever be able to do that again. So, I kind of joke, I'm kind of a one-hit wonder when it comes to certain things. So I think because it's not constant and that energy does come and go. And unlike you, I cannot predict it at all. And so I think that even intensifies the urgency for me, because there's no guarantee in my mind that I will ever feel that creative again. And so when that hits, I got to go. I got to hit the ground running. The starting gun fires and I'm like, go, 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 go. Yeah. So it's fantastic when you're a creative person. If you're self-aware and it can be harnessed in the right ways. And I absolutely think it can, which is why I'm excited to do this episode, because I do think hypomania often gets only a negative rap. Yeah. But I'm thrilled to be able to focus on some of the positives, very carefully, mind you, but just some of the positives, because I do think having bipolar has a positive side. Yeah. And I know I need to be really careful when I say that too, but in my experience, in my life, in order to, make sense and purpose of having bipolar, I do choose to focus on some of those positive aspects. So as a creative, definitely, it is like, I think we've talked about it. Oftentimes people liken it to rocket fuel. So that's how it manifests as a creative, with ideas. Yeah. And often a flurry of ideas that, yes, get them out and make the most of them.
Yeah. And I think you touched on something that just strikes such a chord with me, is that the whole idea of you don't know. And even though I knew that it would come back, I never knew, even though I knew when I was in all of this, I was just dealing with it. So I couldn't sort that out. I didn't have hindsight. Right. And so the same, I felt like I had to fit, it felt panicky because I had to fit everything in those months, or I had to, because there's like impending doom, right? Like all of those things. And the thing is too, you don't always realize there's something wrong because you get compliments, right? Like, oh my goodness, you have so much energy, or how do you get all those things done, or how are you in that many clubs or groups, and I'm usually running them. I ran a community mothers group just because I wanted to hang out with more people and not always be home with my kids. I wanted to be out. I gave birth to my second on a Saturday, and this is going to age me because it was cool. On the Wednesday, I ran the group and we did like a scrapbooking session. There's probably like 20 women there with my 3-day-old baby. And it doesn't, it takes a while for me before the second part, the crash, or the other part that we're going to talk about. So I don't have, people are like, you know, watch for warning signals. And I don't know if that's because I'm not self-aware, but I think I am now. But pre-medication, I wasn't self-aware, and because of, to me, the urgency was more, I was like, oh, I'll deal with the crash later, right? Like it's just all you can see for me, like a racehorse, like what's right in front of me in that moment, and I can't think about consequences, right?
Yeah.
Also, I make really fast decisions, but what someone wouldn't know is that I have thought through those, but I have to make a quick one because it's exhausting thinking about it. So I'd rather just make like a quick decision, and if it's wrong, deal with it later. And I'd rather, like, when I rarely, except for maybe recipes, because I know that's gone wrong, I rarely read instructions. They're so overwhelming to me. I'm like, oh, let's try and put this together, and you know, we'll see. And I just think to myself, like, you would save yourself so much time if you just, but I just can't, like, small print. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I can't do that. I can barely sit still. But yeah, you mentioned your book. So I want to, and you have two, and I want you to talk more about those and what it was like in the night, or what it was, you know, what prompted you, or how you felt when you were writing the book. And then, because I'd love to share some of my creative projects and how I felt and was able to complete them, because I feel like sometimes it's a myth. Some people, like you said, all different experiences with bipolar, that you don't finish things, right? And also, I think uh, I'm also aware of that even more now. So sometimes I should leave things, but I finish them because I don't want to be a stereotype.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. So tell me, like, how long did your book take to write? Like, what was that like for you? Daily life, the intensity, how did you feel about the book?
Well, the book took me 4 long years. There were many periods of hypomania, and then, life got really busy. We moved across the world and then back while I was writing. And I do, or did, have the nickname, I was the queen of many starts, but not a lot of finishes. And so, I even had someone across from me say, "You finished your book. Is that the first thing you finished?" And, I was a little bit offended, but there was definitely some truth to that. But it did take me 4 years. I had those bursts where sometimes the chapters came, but you touched on something very important. I think, at least for me, all of my energy and that rocket fuel has always been poured into projects that I've felt passionate about, that I thought would, help others or change the world. So, I think that even fueled me. I think that fueled me even more. But, I was very, very focused. And, there were software crashes in there when I, thought, oh my goodness, I am never going to finish this. But I did feel very passionate. And, then I really did go through a blip after I published, and they sort of talk about that creative crash when you've finished a project. There's sort of that lull when you've had such a focus and a passion for so long, and it finally is released into the world. You've dedicated so much time and energy. There was a bit of a blah. So I was a little bit braced for that, but not entirely. And then, I was once asked, do you think you start a project and then your hypomania kicks in to carry you through? Or do you think hypomania hits and then you start a project? And I kind of think for me, it was a bit of both. And I got wind of energy and started my children's book. And that took me a year and a half. And then once again, lots of breaks in there, lots of things happening, with my family and my kids. But boy, did it ever feel good to publish that. So to be able to say I've started and finished 2 books, it still seems surreal. I can't believe it at times, but it makes sense of that energy and that creativity. And to me, I really do feel like I was able to bring something really positive out of that, into the world. And the same goes for some of the events that I was a part of. Now, it doesn't mean they didn't come at a cost to some of the people around me. I know we're not going to touch on that right now, but
so hard, right?
Yeah, it is so hard. And we talked and planned for this episode a lot, and we wanted to be really careful about what you had mentioned, not romanticizing it or, making it all seem like roses. But as far as the process of writing my books and seeing them come to fruition, that's a little peek inside of what that journey looked like for me.
Yeah. You mentioned something. Would you describe, like, because there's kind of this myth that we're always all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I think what people don't understand is that either or, like, that's why I love this idea of both and. It's really freed me because, like, bipolar, think about two and opposite, like, uh, and so that focus, it's the more I read about it, it's hyper focus. Like, it's not,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word, an average way to do things, or I don't like the word normal, but I don't have another word for it.
Yeah.
The hyper focus, like, it's like laser, and that's all you can do. And you mentioned, so would you consider yours like hyper focus, like a lot of hours at the same time, all or nothing?
All or nothing and at all expenses. And I know you talked about laser focus going forward, but I think there was no ceiling. I think there's a quote or something, the sky's the limit. How limiting. I think when it comes to a lot of bipolar minds, when they are, on fire, the ideas go beyond your wildest imagination, which is why I think there are so many amazing contributions that have in the art world, the science world, like creative poetry and books, because we think way outside the box. So thinking way outside the box in the most creative ways and then hyper focus. I mean, if done in a healthy and self-aware way, wow, I just say, like, we add color and sparkle and, our minds and our, creativity. The world needs
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah. I think what too, I don't know if you've had this, it sounds like your projects, like you've done some on your own. Well, I'm a collaborator. Like, I need people, and I also need, like, as soon as I can just get one person on board, then I fly even more, right? Especially now that I'm more self-aware and on medication. But that, I love that quote that you said, because it's true. I would remember, and a lot of times it takes a lot of trust of the people you work with, because I was told many, many times, that is not going to work. That is too hard. That is too big. Bring it down. And I am so determined, like, I can get that done. Um, and I'm not saying, like, when I talk about these events, I either had teams or partners or whatever, but I'm just going to talk about my experience. And when some of the biggest things that I've done are when I have, like, a team, or just that one person that believes in me and is
yeah.
like, I don't see that, or or they know me and they're like, well, she pulled that off, so maybe. And another thing, like, I rarely do, that's why I don't do weddings or things like that, because I rarely do the same kind of event twice, which would probably be a lot easier, but it's boring. Like, I just get bored so easily. Like, I'm a huge reader. Like, I read a lot and I read fast. But when I'm at full blown, like, my hypomanic, I cannot read. I can't read. I can't sit down. I can barely do a magazine. We'll start shows. It's so frustrating for my husband, and then I'm bored, or I'm doing something else, or whatever. I just I just can't. And so one of the big, I can think of two really big ones I've did, but one, I did a lot. One even was post medication, because my medication that I'm on, it seems to have, like, really almost taken away, and I feel weird saying that, the major depression or the depressive episodes. I get regular, but they're more situational. They're not, like, ongoing for no reason, right? And I get dips, but they're not severe, right? Whereas before I would get, we've talked about it in previous episodes, so, like, so severe. depressions that, I functioned on, my lowest level. And so, yeah, but I don't know. Now it's not as cyclical, and I don't know. I still get hypomania, muted hypomania, but still hypomania. And so this, I'm going to tell you a story. So
Okay. I'm in
this group, this mom's group, or this other, is kind of intertwined with different church groups and such. And so the other group, which was more like Bible study women's group, they wanted to do like this fun and funny fashion show, right? But they wanted to do like funny, like, oh, look at this woman, she's wearing 10 karat gold, and they wanted to hang like 10 carats and things like that. And I had been having a vision for about and I don't mean vision like seeing things, but I mean like an idea, to have a fashion show, but with a purpose, right? Like I wanted to do something that was going to raise money for something important. And I wanted to do something that was inclusive and diverse. And I had this big idea, but I never had anybody that, believed in it, or that I felt that I could share the idea with. And so when they wanted to do this little one, I was like, oh, well, maybe this is it. Maybe I'm not supposed to do this big one. And so they asked me, and I agreed. And then I sent out the email, and I was like, boom, boom, this is the ideas. And I started, who wants to be in this team and this team? And I'm going to need social media. I'm going to need this. And an hour after I sent it, I knew. I was like, no, like it's not supposed to be this. And I felt like if we did that one, that mine would be like, my idea wouldn't happen, because we wouldn't do the same thing for a while. And I like couldn't sleep. I stressed. But then my big thing was letting people down, because I also really like, I think we all do, like to look good. And these were new women I hadn't worked with, and they had said, they were excited to work with me. They were, and I just sent out this huge email. How do I say, actually, I can't do this, and I really don't think you guys should do this. Put this on hold. There's something else here.
Oh yeah.
And I was up all night, and I was going back and forth. I was crying. Like, it reminds me always like that idea of in the Bible, like the gnashing of teeth. Like I just wrestle, and I'm like, how could I let them down? And what an idiot. And am I even? And I second guess myself, and on and on and on, but I can't. And I need to talk to them. I can't just send a second email. I need to talk to the leader, right? But I can't call till the morning. You can't call them in the middle of the night. And it felt so immediate. And I paced, and it was awful. And like, it felt like the end of the world. And I like literally waited, and I knew she had kids, and I'm like, what is the earliest she would be up? And I had to call, and I knew it could have waited a couple hours, but I was like, no, I have to before it goes any further or anybody puts. And I was just like, and she knew me a bit, but she didn't know me that well. And I could hear in her voice that, like that I was, dramatic. Yes, I was dramatic. I was, I was just like, we cannot do this. Please trust me. There's something else. Luckily, in the, I'm a woman of faith, and in the church world, sometimes you can, and I felt this way at the time, but sometimes people, are more likely to trust in things they can't see. So, kind of like, I was like, I feel like this is like a God thing. Like, I feel like I'm meant to do this. Can you please? And because hers was like an afternoon and small, and like they had other topics and things they could do. I'm like, can you just hold off on that? And I can see if this comes to fruition in the next year or two.
And did it? What ended up happening?
Yeah. So then I partnered with this friend, came into my life right actually when I got really sick. We like met the week I ended up in the hospital, and she just like accepted me how I was, and we just clicked and cared about the same things. And she had that drive too. And we had run this mom's group together and done events and stuff. And we pulled off. So we wanted to do, it was called Runway to Freedom, and we wanted to raise money for human trafficking organizations. And it became huge. I had this idea in my mind of 200 women coming And that was big for an event at our church. And I wanted everyday women. I didn't want models. I wanted everyday women. I wanted people from the
Yay.
smallest size up to we had size 26. I wanted,
Perfect.
you know, we had this celebration of diversity in it where women wore their cultural clothing, right? We had indigenous clothing and, you know, Japanese and their traditional clothes that they wanted to wear. And, but literally we had 3 months and we had something like 60 at least models, right? I had to figure out working with businesses that
How
were
fun.
sustainable. I couldn't just go to any business. I had to make sure that they weren't using unfair and unjust practices. And we had this much budget, right? So we had to also try and get everything donated. And so we had to do it in 3 months. So it was like pretty much like planning 60 weddings.
Wow, full time.
Right? And I wanted it, I strive for excellence. I won't say I'm a perfectionist because I'm turning it into a positive. I strive for excellence. And so, yeah, friend, there 600 people came from all over the community. Yeah.
Amazing.
And raised not like almost $10,000.
Wow.
And yeah, I wore a
what did you wear? I hope you walked the runway.
I wore a gown.
Yeah.
Like I would have, and there were so many things that went wrong and on the way. And I think if I didn't have, you know, that hypomania or that hyper focus, I would have given up a long time ago. And I would have kept it small, or I would have, you know, played small or not done that. Luckily that friend believed in the vision and just having one person that believed in me, but I had to, I you know, I had people that had put me in a box and was like, she's wild. Like I also was representing the church and having the money, and unfortunately women's events at this specific church weren't funded well. And so yeah, like it would have, if we just had the budget and I could have went out and paid people, it probably would have saved me a month's worth of work, right? But yeah, and the event was like a $10,000 event and we had like a $3,000 budget. So you can imagine how much time we went around asking.
Wow.
Anyways, I'm going on and on about it because it's one of my, one accomplishment. And then also working with She Loves Magazine, doing some very different events. And mine, the thing is, like, some people are like, oh, well, you know, if I'm like, oh, I need something like that, they're like, well, plan my birthday party. And if it's someone I totally love, I can do that. But I think it has to be something I'm completely passionate about. It has to have, like, I'm very social justice oriented. And so it isn't an event to be an event. Like it has to have this meaning behind it. And if I don't have that and I don't believe in the purpose, I literally can't get it together to do it. I just can't. So that's why I always like, don't say I kind of like, oh, I event plan on the side. I don't call myself a true event planner because I don't work that way. And so that was one of the big things. Like, you know, you had your books. I had certain events I've done. And I think you touched on something. I'd love you to talk about it a little bit more, how that felt. And then I'd love to read some of our community, how they've explained their mania. That you called it almost narcissism, and you said it the other day, and I was like, oh,
I know.
Like, but explain what you mean by that. What I took it as is you have the height of ideas, but for me, I also think they're the best ideas, and I also think that they need to be done the way that I think they need to be done, because I think so fast. I've thought through the pros and cons, so I'm very quick to dismiss some people's ideas because I'm like, oh, I already thought of that, and I thought about what could go wrong. But that doesn't. Yeah. So explain what you mean by that and how, you know, that manifests. And I know that's going a little bit into the negative stuff. So we will touch a little bit more on that, but how you feel, maybe the good thoughts in your head. Like, I legit think that I can single-handedly change the world. Giant problems.
It's all the things you described too. Just, when you are so passionate about something and you're a perfection or strive for excellence, and I will say it, I am a bit controlling. I mean, all of that mixed together, and you just believe that you are the person, the best person, and mix in like a million pounds of self-confidence and feeling great, and then throw on leopard, and you've got the recipe for, it can easily go into being over the top. And then, when I was focused on things, I was focused on me and my project and what I wanted to do, and I wanted to work on it. So there were definitely blinders to other people, other responsibilities. And so I think that's what I mean when I use the term narcissism. And I know that that is actually one of the symptoms of, I think, both mania and hypomania. But yeah, I think
not using that word lightly or as an adjective. We're actually talking about things that it's defined as.
Yeah, and
not all of the things, but the just that's it's all about us at all, like at a
yeah, and we'll go into it in the next episode. That can easily flip and go sideways.
Yeah.
Or downhill very fast. But
and we're gonna get right into that, the nitty gritty, and I don't know like I'm a little nervous because
that's why this episode it's been really hard. And we said, stick to the positive, because it's so easy to name the positive and then right away. And I think because we're on the other side of a lot of it. And really quick before we wrap up this, I wanted to ask you, I know you had mentioned that we have both decided to take medication to manage our bipolar. And so I know a lot of people do have that question. Does medication take that creativity away? Do you still get those highs? And I think a lot of people are hesitant to take medication for that reason. So, Shaley, hypomania, pre-medication, post-medication, have you noticed a difference?
Yeah. So yes. And I've experienced, so I still get, in fact, I think it was last year, I actually got almost one that used to be pre-medication, but definitely. Am I still creative? Yes. Do I do, big things? 100%. That other event I did was medicated. But I think I don't believe in myself as much, and I think that's why now I surround myself with a team also to keep me in check. But I don't the sky isn't the limit, because I'm actually aware of other things and factors. And so I miss that just abandon. Also, I would it was like, that book, if you give a mouse a cookie, then they want a glass of milk, then they want a when a pre-medication, like say I would change one thing in my house, I would see every single thing wrong with it and it all needed to fix. Or like even when we were potty training our daughter, I made such an elaborate, it was beautiful, like
I bet it was
potty training, like steps she could do with stickers and all this, but I made everything like complicated, that we do this and this and this, and I make systems that I can't keep up, right? And I look around and it's, if you give Shaley a paintbrush, she will paint this room, if which will mean then she'll have to get a new curtains and all of that things. So I'm able to rein that in a little bit. I'm also able to I'll talk about my memory in the next episode, but do things in more of a sequential order. But do I miss parts of it? Yeah, I don't, like I am a night owl, which I used to be able to be, and an early morning person. Like I don't get up with that, like I can still get up early, but not like before, where I was up when no one was up and I had the ideas. And just not all the things. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so then I do them well, but I think it is different. And that's why, I was having a conversation with someone online that was trying to understand, but they're just like rolled their eyes like, oh, they went off their medication, or oh, they're playing with their medication, like what an idiot-ish kind of voice. And it was like, you don't get it. You don't get how beautiful that feels, especially if you've just come out of a depression,
Yeah.
right? Like even feeling an ounce of that. I haven't done it, but I have thought about it. I have thought about like maybe just like, and luckily I have my people around me to be like,
Don't
listen,
mess.
maybe I could just, and then get this project done really fast. Maybe I could. And so I hope that if there's people in your life that have gone off and on medication, I mean, yes, encourage them not to, but try and understand why, right? Try to understand it isn't it sometimes a lot of things we do don't feel like a choice, right? And so, yeah, how about you?
For me, I definitely, and it's so tough to say how much of this is a result of being on medication versus being older and more self-aware and learning coping mechanisms. But I definitely think that looking back, I think I had more hypomanic episodes before I went on medication, which is actually a reason I was really hesitant to get on it. I was afraid it was going to take away my creativity. I'm happy to report that my books have come after I, got on medication, and I've also been a part of some really fun projects and events after being on medication. So the creativity is still there. Um, and I think a lot of, I haven't had very many bursts lately, but I think I've had a lot of other things going on in my life. And so I think that's a factor too, when your focus is either on your kids, and Shaley and I are both married and have children. So I think if maybe I was single living in Paris in an apartment with a paintbrush, maybe I would have had more time or space for that creativity. But overall, medication has not taken away my creativity. I think if anything, it's helped me to be more self-aware. And in so many areas of my life, I kind of liken my medication to being like an emergency braking system. So whether that's for outbursts or some of my behavior or even my creativity, it's just sort of helped me to just taper it down a little, but it didn't take it away. And I know for some people, I have heard that it has really affected their creativity or hypomanic episodes, but for me, not so much. And I desperately hope that I get another burst soon, and that I think, I mean, I'm not going to say that I am perfect or, perfectly self-aware, that I don't struggle, and there's always a risk of me, going off the rails. But I definitely hope for that creativity and another burst of rocket fuel. And hopefully with some of the tools that I've got now, I'll be able to harness it for good and keep hypomania as a positive thing. But dum dum dum.
Yeah,
We definitely
and we for those of you that don't know the backstory, we put this together in like a month, and you show up every month, and we're and it's constant, and I'm so grateful for that. And I honestly think that if I wasn't on medication, I might have made this into something else, or you know what I mean? But I would have never liked a constant thing, and now I appreciate a bit of routine and constantness. So constantness. I think I may just made up a word, but let's go with it.
We'll take it.
I put an image, a reposted image on our social media that said that mania can feel like sunshine on a rainy day. Again, I know we've given this so much, but I really don't want to upset people that have zero good experiences with mania. We're just telling our story. Okay. But I really wanted to read some, because some of these descriptions were so well, and some I don't know for sure if bipolar 1 or bipolar 2 is in play, but we have an amazing community online. Join us on Instagram. There's some really beautiful conversations and some brave people coming forward and sharing. So in that post, I said, what does it feel like for you? So some people said, like no one is on my level and I can do no wrong. Alive again, then scared, then alive. Um, I think I'm a very important person and I can help all people. We know that one. And then I feel great and very creative. My mind is filled with images and stories. I write all night long and I don't feel tired. I'm very solar. Alive again. Yeah, yeah, I'm going to tell about that one. It's pure energy, heart and brain. And then, like we said, until it gets overwhelming, nothing can stop me. I can stay up all night. And then I have mixed features. So there's that one, but I'm trying to find one. Oh, like I drank every bit of caffeine I could get my hands on, right? And
Yep.
then I'm trying to feel, oh, this one. I was like, this describes things. It says, like I know a secret that the rest of the world wishes they knew. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, every single one of those responses resonate with me. And I think it's so great that people are willing to share and that we can come together and share our experiences and know that number one, we're not alone. Um, I think it's beautiful, fascinating. I love hearing all of those responses.
Yeah. So thank you if you're someone that's
Yeah.
listening that shared. And so, yeah, this is the beautiful side of mania, and this is Bipolar.
This is Bipolar.